And tonight, we are going to be talking about the fundamentals, and it's a stage of the long-term athletic development model. It's the second stage. 0 to 6 is the active start, beginning stage, and then you move into fundamentals. And so that's kind of the theme here for tonight, which is that 8 to 12 age group we'll go with. I mean, of course, you're teaching the fundamentals to the younger ones as well. But we'll try to, I'm going to start in theory and speak to basic fundamental movement skills to start, and then venture to fundamental lacrosse skills. So what I've done is I've taken we're going to do a quick session through the fundamental movement skills module or clinic offered by the NCCP that you could actually get credit for if you did the full course, but I'm not even actually able to do that to the best of my knowledge. But I will pick out the best stuff for our needs and then try to tie that together with some other things. So fundamental movement skills. What we want to be able to do is detect and correct basic skill errors within the fundamental movement skills. We also, by the end of this, want to be able to apply a teaching process to fundamental movement skills, such as teaching games for understanding, or some of these story-based practice plans that I'll show you for these younger age groups. Adapting fundamental movement skills for participants who have disabilities. Leading activities that will promote the development of fundamental movement skills in a safe, responsible manner while interacting with others, and providing stage-appropriate feedback to encourage and develop FMS participants. And the stage is the developmental stage that they're at within LTAD, which is the model followed by all sports in Canada in terms of scientific structure and how we want to approach sport. So fundamental movement skills are the building blocks of the movement. They're the basic run, kick, pass, throw, jump, all these basic falling. Falling is a big one that I'm going to highlight here, but fundamental movement skills that are the root of the fundamental lacrosse skill. It's the basis. It's the building block of the fundamentals of lacrosse that will teach ultimately. And what we're trying to do is create physical literacy in these kids that stretches beyond just lacrosse. And if we get a reputation for that, we will bring more people into lacrosse because they'll understand that they will learn how to take contact and how to body check from lacrosse before hockey even, and a great segue. But it's building motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge, and understanding, valuing the responsibility for engagement in physical activities for life. So in the end, the main goal is for these people to be active for life. Like if they go through all the stages of LTAD, in the end, they're in masters lacrosse, still playing, got the stick with them in their hands till they die, just like you, Robert?
Yep.
Me too, buddy. I'll take it. I'm taking mine to the casket for sure. So the fundamental movement skills in English are sometimes known as the ABCs, your agility, balance, coordination, in no particular order, or if you were to put it in order, I would say balance, coordination, and then agility. But because it fits the acronym, we'll say ABCs. But you want to have like a balanced, stable movement, coordinating the body parts, and then adding variability with agility later on. And further, locomotor skills and body control skills while manipulating an object. Like, so in teaching, the curriculum objectives in the school are this person needs to be able to locomote while manipulating an object. And they don't even say what sport, but that's what they have to be able to do to meet the curriculum expectations. So that's why lacrosse is a great sport to meet those curriculums. But anyways, that's another story for another day, and we're tackling that. So again, there's, well, really the most basic of movements like crawling into like walking and running. Running is a big one that we have to teach as well at this age. Like you can do so much service if you can just teach somebody to fix their running technique, as Tristan knows very well. And, you know, just like skating, it's kind of two sports in one really, but you know, if you're a great skater, you're probably going to end up being a good hockey player. And then, so then that leads us to the fundamental movement skills, which take us to the fundamental sports skills, which are the fundamental lacrosse skills in this case. So speaking about the teaching process for FMS, or fundamental movement skills, we want to be able to first analyze and then come up with a plan and later implement our plan of how do we integrate FMS into our practices, for instance. Our practices in theory for active start, the stage below this, should be 75% fundamental movement skills and only 25% fundamental lacrosse skills. At this age group, it's closer to 50-50. In fact, at this age group, they should be practicing 3 times for every time that they play a game. But again, we'll get to that. So first we need to analyze the movements that they're doing. We need to analyze their running technique. We need to analyze their throwing technique. Before they even get a stick in their hand, can they throw a beanbag into a hula hoop? Why do we have to add the stick first? We can teach the basic mechanics of throwing and right off the jump. And from there, detect and correct errors. And by the time we put the stick in their hands, hopefully they've just corrected their general throwing problems before we even get to the lacrosse stuff. Of course, we have to adapt for behavioral disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities, just day-to-day disruptions, or not disruptions, but challenges. Sensory disability, this is a big one. Sometimes you just practice and practice and practice with the kid and they just can't catch the ball. 50 times, haven't caught one. Are we doing something wrong? Or do they maybe have space and time perception issues where they're seeing in 2D instead of 3D and they can't use depth perception to catch the ball? So maybe they need glasses. That's another often overlooked issue. And of course, I mean, you could take it even down to a cellular level, a physiological level. They might be deficient in iron, so they have no energy. I don't know. But once we've ruled that stuff out, we look to detect and correct skill errors by first understanding the best place to observe from, knowing what motor stage they're at. Are they a level 1 thrower? Are they a level 2 thrower? Or are they a level 3 thrower? What makes a 1, 2 versus a 3? This is what we don't have in the school systems when we try to bring it in. We don't have stuff to give a grade right now. And this is the stuff we need. And then lastly is detecting the error in one of the 4 phases of the movement. Does anybody know the 4 phases of any movement that you do? The 4 phases of any movement. What do you do when you start to throw a ball? What are you doing with your body? Give me a specific action you might take to get your throw ready. I just gave you a hint. The first phase is the preparatory movements. So in lacrosse, it's reaching our stick back, right? If you just start your pass right from here, you're not using the leverage of the stick. So bring your stick back, bring your weight to your back foot. Those are the preparatory movements. The second phase of any movement, not just throwing, is the force producing movements, which is the transfer of weight in this case from the back foot to the front foot, the rotation of the hips. When people don't rotate their hips, it's all arms and there's not a lot of velocity now on the shot. The third phase is the critical instant, when something special happens. In soccer, it's how you angle your foot when you kick the ball at the moment of contact. For us, it's when the ball is released from the stick. It's the release point of the stick. And what could be the problem? Well, firstly, could be the tightness of your shooting strings or the hook or whip on your stick. And so, the ball is going down or up. Further is, where does the ball come out? Does it come out in front of the body? Does it come out behind the body? If I want to throw a pass in the air or a lob pass, I throw it from behind my head. The ball exits my stick behind my body. And kids might be doing that naturally. Like they might just be throwing it high, or they might be throwing it low and the ball is, bouncing before it hits the boards if they were passing against the boards. And so they're hanging on to it for too long in the critical instant. So we need to, usually it's by the ear where the ball has to come out to end up in the other person's stick. But, we need to adjust their critical instant, and you do the adjusting through good cues, specific, simple, concise cues that correct things instantly when you hear them. Reach your arms, rotate your hips, release the ball beside your ear. And then the fourth phase is follow through and or recovery of the motion. So I could go through that with loose balls, catching. I could break down each one of those movements, and the kids will have some problem in one of the four phases or more. And you need to know which one is the biggest problem. And I mean, usually it's in the order of operations, 1, 2, 3, then 4. We'll see more about that. How do I observe the skill? Where do I observe it from? That's going to be important when we look at the fundamental movement skills. For throwing, we want to be in a 3/4 frontal view. So if you imagine yourself kind of standing like right here, you can see the arm that's being used. That's the best view. Running from the side or from behind. Tristan I'm sure you've been in enough clinics where the doctor says, walk across the room, right? And they're judging your gait from behind, right? And one leg might be going outward, one leg might be going inward, both might be going inward, both might be going outward is probably the most common one, where the person has tight hips and a weak groin. So they don't have the groin strength to pull their legs in a straight motion like this. And there's drills to teach how to run on train tracks, just like we skate on train tracks with our arms like this. Because when we go across our body, where horizontal deviations slow us down, and we can fix a lot just by and be more injury, like have less injuries because we're not putting as much stress on the knees. So even just to watch the kids run and have them run back and forth and analyze each person's situation, because they're all different. It's again analyzing. And feel free to ask questions at any point here. If you guys any thoughts or whatever you want to share, it's all good. But so in academic terms, the skill develops. There's the initial skill emerging, you become emerging, competent, and then a proficient mover. And if you look at like NFL wide receivers, defensive backs, they're proficient movers. They're beyond competent. Like At competent, you're like physically literate and you can probably play every sport and hang and be fine. But proficient, you're like an expert in the sport specific movements of your sport at that level. So talking about the different stages, whether you're a 1, 2, or 3 thrower in this case, which level do you think this is? If one is like the least proficient, or let's call them initial, right, or level 1, as we look back at this last slide, stage 1, if you're a stage 1, you're just initial first time doing it, you're probably doing a bunch of things wrong. Stage 2, you probably have 1 or 2 things wrong. Stage 3, you're pretty much doing it right. Maybe not the most proficient, but you're doing it right. So what stage is this? What stage is this? And what stage is this, would you guess? Top, middle, bottom. Which one's level 1? Which one's level 2? Which one's level 3? Have you ever seen somebody who steps with the same leg as the same arm when they throw? This is a big problem in beginning people throwing with a lacrosse ball too, right? Here, they're not even stepping though. So there's no force production. There's no even preparatory movement really. It's just kind of like, get rid of this. I don't want this. So like, here's your level 1. Here's your level 2. And here's actually a level 3, how it should look, right? You reach back with your arm, you transfer your weight from one leg to the other, you follow through to the target. Right here, this person's really not following through like this person. They're not stepping. They're not rotating their hip. They're missing like 3 or 4 of the main key proponents of the movement. And that's how you need to look at the fundamentals in our sport. And in fact, when you get to the stages of the movement, preparatory, force producing, here they are. Here's the preparatory movements, the force producing movements, the critical instant, the release point of the jump shot where you flick the wrist, right? That's the critical instant in basketball. And here they call it the recovery and or the follow through, right? But like, if we call this, I know it says 1, 2, 3 for stages, but if we give numbers to preparatory, force producing, critical instant recovery, so 1, 2, 3, and a 4, if I sent a group and said, okay, go practice passing against the boards, after I just did a great demo that was very inclusive of the different styles of learning and very short and sweet for this age, but then I walk around and, it's a skill to be able to look at what they're doing and tell them exactly what they need to fix with as little language as possible. And that's what we need to do. And you're better off to give them a number and walk around and give them a quick number and say, you're a 1, you're a 3, you're a 2, you're a 4, you're a 4, you're a 3, you're a 1. Give everybody a number and then put all the 1s in one corner, put all the 2s in another corner, put a 3s in another corner, 4s in another corner, and practice. The group 1 is practicing the preparatory movements. Group 2 is practicing transferring their weight and rotating their hips. Group 3 is trying to find the release point. Like sometimes I do want to throw a bounce shot. And I do need to hold on to the ball longer and release it further in front of me. And that's how I bounce it. But when I'm trying to throw a pass, I need it coming out beside my ear or even further back if there's a hook in the stick, in all reality. Hopefully there's not. Hopefully they're using warps in a best case scenario where there's the string job is basically, I don't know, accounted for. Not going to go over these. I'm going a little longer on this than I was wanting to, but breaking the skills into 4 phases now. Again, preparatory, force producing, critical, recovery, and follow through. And by the way, I can send you these slides, but we want to be coordinating these things. It becomes choppy when you need smooth transitions between these things, right? And you need to that's where the coordination of the ABCs, balance and then coordination after balance. Here's some running examples. I'll let you jumping as well. You can read that on your own time. Some cues. Here it is, cues, right? We talked about it last week in our pillars of fundamental lacrosse. It was part of our overall values and philosophies, but having good cues is critical, and it's embedded in our practice plans. Cues for a stage 1, cues for a stage 2, cues for a stage 3. I always say have a progression and a regression ready for everybody, even a stage 3. If I'm doing partner passing, chances are there's half the group has never played in a house league, 8-year-olds. Half the group has maybe played for 3 years, or maybe 25% has played for a year or two. So I need to, like, maybe with the first years I'm doing something, with the second years I'm doing something, and the third years there's something else going on. I maybe start them all with the same, but as soon as here's the key. If they can do it 3 out of 3 times, it's too easy. If they can do it 1 out of 3 times or less, it's too hard. The challenge zone is doing it right 2 out of 3 times. And that's where we want to move people to. So then we're kind of take all of that, and it gets into planning, and we're going to talk about this in further detail, but like how a proper warm-up and including fundamental movement skills in our warm-ups. Dynamic warm-up is a great time to work on agility, balance, coordination. So this is just like, practice planning 101, but you have like your warm-up, your main part, your culminating activities next. But how many people in lacrosse right now are adding fundamental movement skills into their practices with these younger kids? We take it for granted, really.
Yeah.
And so then you have a cool down, you have a conclusion. So that's like whatever, a basic planning a practice. It should be safe, fun. We talked a lot about fun last week. Yannick's the only one who wasn't here. I'm going to quickly go over those fundamental slides just for Yannick real quick and for the sake of this video. But they should be simple, max participation for max people. Avoid anything that eliminates people, like breakaway competitions in some cases. Oh, if you score and you're in. Well, actually, the best thing I ever heard for that, I mean, there's multiple ways to view it, but Schattler did it. He said, to win, you have to score 3 in a row. So therefore, if you miss, you're still in. If somebody scores 2 in a row and then they miss again, everybody's still in. Everybody's still going. Max participation for max people. Avoid lines bigger than 3 or 4. Like you'll see in one of the practices here, when I get them shooting on the net, it's an open net. At 8 years old, at 7, 6 years old, there's no need for even a goalie. They should be on a 3x3 net and just trying to hit the net. And, everybody shoots at the same time. And then you reload and shoot at the same time and reload. And therefore, they're getting a ton of reps shooting. Max participation. You should explain, demonstrate, then do. Brief explanation, maybe like a little quick diagram to show them where they're going to be set up. Demonstrate the skill they're going to be doing, and do it with this age in less than a minute. Most people go on and on and on and give a 5-minute explanation, and it's way too much. People are only going to remember 2 to 3 things anyways. Here's the checklist. Implementation. Giving feedback, not just saying good job. Give me some specific feedback. What was good about it? Or what wasn't? What can you work on? Give the praise sandwich. We talked about that. Positivity. 5 things positive for every 1 negative, or a positive, a negative, and then finish with the positive. I don't even consider it a negative, really. It's just feedback. So not much else there. So I'm going to just rehash on the things from, again, a theoretical standpoint that we should have in our environment, in our culture for this age. And number one is fun. All of these 4 pillars here are rooted in fun. Fun starts with the imagination at this group. I said it, some of it before, positivity, but body language, good listening, building confidence, promoting risk taking, teaching them self-regulation, using simple cues, storytelling, make believe scenarios. They love it. Demonstrations, good ones, time to explore, and ultimately creating magical experiences. And that's why, you know, having an equipment check before your first practice is critical if they're not using warp sticks, because you're just going to be out there restringing 5 sticks and losing track of your practice, because the biggest thing holding people back will be that their stick doesn't throw. And so you need to address that first, ahead of time. Tristan, you need a bag full of sticks that work consistently all the time to bring around with you. I know the ones that we used to get for 25 bucks a stick. I mean, they were fly swatters and they're doing more harm than good. They're sending people away from the game as opposed to a magical experience. Like, oh, I suck at this, I want to do something else. So we should be teaching the fundamentals in a developmentally appropriate way while using fundamental movement skills, teaching physical competence, physical literacy, and teaching kids how to follow instruction using these basic cues we talked about, using a process that we just went over, leading to fundamental lacrosse skills, which we're going to talk a lot about here in a second. Here's the detecting, correcting errors, teaching the rules wherever we can, involve the rules in the drills where they count. For kids, the biggest one is, like, if you're going to play 3x3 lacrosse, have creases. Get the real creases. They're $100 from Walmart. And at the younger ages, I even used the 17-foot women's crease in its diameter, 17-foot in diameter women's crease, the shorter one, and it's proportional to the net. But anyways, we want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that, if somebody's off to the side and not, feeling good about themselves or whatever, that we invite them in and we encourage other people to talk with them and support them. We want to support multi-sport at this age, promote a healthy lifestyle, give them continuing education, not just lacrosse. Give them extras. And I'll show you all about the extras when we get to the practice planning and all the little things we can do. Engage the parents, talked about max participation, celebrate improvement, praise their effort, show appreciation to the volunteers, lots of smiles, lots of teamwork, and lots of time for free play. That about sums it up. We do have slides with some great information on each of those pillars, but we went over them last time, and I'm sure we'll do this presentation again at some point, hopefully for all the future FCQ members. But this is a big part of what we want to do moving forward, and this is kind of the theory and the values and the philosophies behind it all. And probably the best resource Lacrosse Canada ever put out is this one right here, Lacrosse for Life. I don't know if everyone has it, but it breaks out a lot of this stuff I was talking about with LTAD, what it is, why we do it. I love this graphic, the circle of life in my eyes, active for life, right? Different entry points, different, windows of opportunity at these different ages. some good information on how to, play the game the right way. And also noting the differences in the landscapes across Canada. So, for instance, there's type 3 MAs, which are usually like remote, like MA is member association, but like in New Brunswick, we got 3 exceptional players at the Canada Games because we're a type 3 member of Lacrosse Canada. And type 3 can also send all-star teams to the Founders Cup, whereas type 2 can only pick up 3 players when they go to national tournaments. And I think Quebec only ended up with 1 player they were allowed to get for Canada Games, maybe 2. Type 1, such as BCLA, OLA, Alberta, they can't add any players, for instance. And the big thing is, like, it used to be Tyke, but now it's U9. They play full floor, 5-on-5 lacrosse, and it's really, like, in some place like Orangeville, like, it's beautiful, like, it's crazy, like they're playing like U17 lacrosse in theory at U9. And like that is an example of, they're doing it at a really high level, and that might be developmentally appropriate in that situation. But for us, for some of the smaller MAs, we have to adapt, and I'm sure, Robert, you know all about that. But so, for instance, I am a bit skeptical on this myself, whether they would even still do this, but 6 and under, full floor, 5-on-5, they're saying in a type 1 organization could be played, suggested on a 3x3 net with no contact, no score, helmets and gloves, with coaches reffing, 3-minute shifts, 3 12-minute periods, and yeah. So I think that OLA's probably changed their stance now that they have this 3-on-3 that they're suggesting for 6 to 8-year-olds, which I would highly suggest too. It's more touches. This becomes a track meet in the middle, running full floor, gassing. Like, you don't perform the fundamentals as well when you're tired. So, like, it would, I question that. But anyways, maybe for 8U. And whereas the type 2 and everybody else should be doing 3v3 across the floor. Again, the 3x3 net here. You can see they've added some LTAD objectives here. Here you see the rules, teaching fair play, agility games. So that's a fundamental movement skill game is all that is. Tag is a game, fundamental movement skill. You probably should have taught them how to run before you play that game. Teach them how to cut before you play an agility game, but ultimately it's something you progress to. And the technical skills here, basically your basic fundamentals. Tactical, nothing more than a give and go, like pass and cut. You're pretty much all you're going to get at this age. Probably a lot of one-on-one in all reality. People just, following the ball all over the floor. It's probably on the ground, 80% of the time in all reality. But anyways, and then even a step back from that, not much different here. Less players, shorter games, stuff like that. So, but then as you move up, right, 7 and 8-year-olds, again, your type 1 organization, in theory, could be playing 5-on-5 full floor, saying 12 to 15 players. Note that it's still on a 3x3 net. How many times do you see people at this age shooting up into a net? Up. We're always shooting down in our trajectory. So why would we have kids shooting on a 4x4 net? So, we need to invest in these. Hopefully everybody's doing it. But some other adaptations is you might move the nets together, and that changes the dynamic of the game. It's a shorter, small-sided game, but it's a little bit bigger than across the floor. There's a lot more loose balls in the corners and stuff and coming out of the corner, but there's some advantages to that too, and learning, how to finish broken plays and things like that. But then again, and what I like to do is usually a half-hour practice and then a half-hour scrimmage / game after. And again, no score, no major equipment needed, soft lacrosse rules. And I've got a list of soft lacrosse rules. You might have your own, but giving a meter of space even in a gym class scenario when there's no helmets. Anyway, and so on and so forth. And again, this is a great, like, we're at the fundamentals stage of lacrosse development. You can read your 9 and 10 and right up to now it's U13, right? And what's appropriate, adding more tactical pick and roll type stuff. What can you advance to in all of this? Should I keep going here? All right. Now I'm going to really dive in. So, go ahead, Robert.
Okay, I'll need to give you a break, Chet. I want to make sure that we will receive all those things that you're showing every week, because I'm starting to rep a lot of games starting next Thursday. So maybe I won't be there or I will be late. I want to make sure we will receive all the thing that you're showing.
Yep, absolutely. You will.
Okay.
Yep. One thing you will have to vouch for and promote and work it in. It's not there yet. I'll show you. It's the last thing I'm going to show you. But what I want to do here now is look at each fundamental skill. And so every organization recently got a full access membership to the website, but you wouldn't even need access to get this because all beginner information on this website is free. So if you just click beginner here, everything beginner for non-members is going to be free. So that's going to be like the majority of the people in your organization. And there's practice plans here as well that are free. But at the beginning, I built this in Teachers College. It's the first thing I ever did, I think, related to systematic breakdown of the game. But the teacher said, I want you to break down all the fundamental skills in a sport. And of course, I chose lacrosse, as I did with every assignment I ever had in school. So the drill book here it's ordered in theory in the way the fundamentals of the game appear. So you need to warm up before you even play. You also need to warm up your goalie before you even play, before you start ripping shots at them. And then if you start like the game, you need to be defensively responsible from the opening face-off. Like I always say, 3 players on the back line and 1 on the offensive line. So you don't give up a fast break. Just, you might adjust that as you play, but, you're thinking defensive responsibility. Like you hear it all the time in the higher levels, like, oh, they're not defensively responsible. We can't play them. They can't make the jump. Well, anyways, the very first thing, if we lose the face-off, you're gonna have to play defense. And it's great because anybody can play lacrosse, I always say, if you've shadowed a check and played defense in another sport and you had to stay in between the person with the ball and the net. And that's why I was effective at 15 in lacrosse, coming out and having a stick where I could guide people and use my feet and be effective. And I could run up and down the floor 5 times without getting tired. As you can see now in 6s lacrosse is going to be critical. So you can be very effective if you can play some good defense. And then after you play good defense, the ball comes loose and you have to pick up the loose ball. And then you have to protect the ball. You have to value the ball. We always say scoop, tuck, and turn. That's what Lindsay Sanderson used to always teach us. Run to daylight, open space, preferably up the floor. And then the next thing is to be able to get the stick up into the triple threat position. And if somebody's up the floor, headman the ball or push the ball. And you should always be looking to get your stick up after that loose ball if you don't need to protect it. And that leads into stick work, transitioning the ball, and ultimately ending up on offense. And I just tucked in like games and cardio at the end as, you should do cardio at the end. If you're trying to develop cardio in your practice, you should do it at the end. And this is where a lot of, I'm going to say, grassroots coaches make mistakes. They run the kids early or even in the middle of the practice too hard. And then, but that's where the learning happens, at the beginning of the practice. That's where in your implementation in your plan, your main teaching should be towards the beginning when their minds are fresh. The more you run them, the more mistakes they're going to make. And so if you're going to develop cardio, do it at the end. I remember when I got to Nova Scotia and I went out to my first Team Nova Scotia midget practice, and like they were doing like speed and agility drills for like half an hour before practice. This was at the start of the season. I'm like, are you expecting a good practice here? Because I already know it's going to be terrible. And it was. But there's a time and a place actually to pre-fatigue. But like that's in like a high performance setting, like in the playoffs, like, or trying to prepare for like the fourth quarter, or you know what I mean, like overtime, and putting people in these special endurance scenarios. But generally speaking, no. And so warm-ups, well, actually I don't do a dynamic warm-up in my plans for U9 until the third practice. And I know it's a great habit to get into, but I don't know, like even at a tri lacrosse, let's say, very first lacrosse session, probably in somebody's life, do I want to put them through a dynamic warm-up that might take 7-10 minutes? Maybe I could even do some fundamental movement skills, whatever, but I'm losing from the magic of the sport right away. And I'm not even going to be doing anything super intense that first day. So I actually don't do it. And some people might question that, but I think the more time with their stick in the hands for the first couple of sessions, the better. We're not going to do anything crazy where they're going to pull a muscle anyways. And at this age, they're very flexible, nimble, pliable. And so we do introduce it by about the third practice and then continually add it to the routine after that with lots of fundamental movement skills. But, it's a great time to teach them how to run properly, how to side shuffle properly, how to keep their stick up, how to fall, and also how to do this thing we call dynamic stretching, which most of them may have not heard of, but most of our parents would have done static stretching in the beginning. I remember in football, we used to get in a big circle and we'd sit there and hold our stretches for 30 minutes. And really, we were actually just decreasing our power output, our force potential, without knowing it. So I won't get too much into the science other than to say it's well studied that a dynamic movement where I go through a range of motion and back all in one motion. So instead of doing a lunge and holding it, I step back and do a lunge, and then I stand up straight. I step back in a lunge and I stand up straight, and I alternate legs and I stretch my hip flexors that way. But I don't overstretch them to the point where they're not as, powerful, as I said. So understanding a warm-up's important. I should have had my slides ready for how to warm up a goalie properly. because, you know, you got to hit the goalie with the ball, let them feel it. Like kids are trying to, you know, light it up for their own personal confidence and destroying the confidence of probably the most important player on their team. So, anyways, here's a look at goaltending again at the start of the goaltending section, and even offering a series of drills here to build up goaltending. So if I was to teach a goalie how to goaltend, I would start with stance and probably footwork and rebound control. This is kind of like all together. Then they have to learn how to pass. And there's lots of other shooting drills and stuff that I'd show you in a goalie clinic. But the way it works is they need to track the ball, move around in the net, position themselves or reposition themselves, choose a save selection, either a shoulder block or a leg save, and then controlling the rebounds, finding the ball again, and bringing you back into the cycle, right? So in the beginning with the goalie, really I'm putting them in the net, letting them feel the post and be centered in the net. And then what we do actually, and I'll just kind of use this picture, but if the ball is, in this case, it looks like it's at the point, the top center, we teach the goalie to take 1.5 steps off the goal line and then go back to the middle of the net and reposition. And then if it's at the shooter, take 1 step and come back. And then if it's at the crease, take a 1/2 step and come back. So it's 1/2 step, full step, 1.5 steps, full step, 1/2 step to the 5 offensive positions. And we get them moving around the net and feeling the net. And from each of those positions, starting centered in the net, the first 5 shots are right in the goalie's chest pad. The next 5 shots, and I tell them before, are going to go to their right shoulder or our left, and then the other shoulder, and then the other leg, and then the other leg. And so they get the chance, and you teach them how to step and how to be big and move their arm and their shoulder all as one unit. And you take those shots. And you don't teach them rebound control yet, though. You do that, and then you move to rebounds next, and you do it again. And you say this time, anytime the ball's anywhere outside of your crease and you can get to it, you're allowed to take 1 step out as long as you keep 1 step in. And now you're getting to the rules. And then you can shoot the ball off the glass on purpose, and then it hits the back of the net, and then it usually bounces around back behind here. And you get them coming out and challenging for balls behind the net. And then lastly is if they make the save and they can get the rebound right in front of them, they want to be able to get the ball up into the triple threat position themselves and be able to be a quarterback and throw the ball. But, you know, there's varying degrees of, you know, proficiency, and sometimes they have to just give the ball to a player in the crease. Unfortunately, like there's no sense in like, firstly, there could be the fallback rule, right? Where they actually, after a team loses the ball, they have to run back. They're not allowed to put up a press, or if the goalie has the ball, they have to fall back. So, but, you know, otherwise, it does the goalie no good. If you truly know that they can't pass yet, you should be working on it in practice. The basic outlet pass to the far side hockey hash mark over and over and over until they can get it. And that's what you build to. If they can't, they hand it off in the crease. Maybe they take a couple stabs at it if it's wide open for a pass here. But, you know, we build from a short pass to a mid-range pass. And probably by the time they're late in their career, they might be able to do the long pass. But that's, you know, the fundamentals of goaltending, right? The ready position. I didn't really talk about that. Like you can see the hand is at their hip over here. It's not behind their body. It's not open like hockey trying to catch it. You know, we need to be aware too with these beginning goalies. They need this throat protector or they can't come onto the floor. That's another thing to know. And then otherwise, like standing and look about hip width apart, maybe even wider than hip width apart. This is, you know, different goalies have different stances, you know, taller goalies, stockier goalies. You have to kind of figure it out. But there you have it. So getting into defense now. So again, at the start of the defense section, you've got this wonderful skills analysis. I'll just read this one. I'm a D guy, so I love it. So I'll give you some passion here, but defense starts with quality goaltending and is reinforced with good foot and body positioning by the players in front of the goalie. In the same vein, the athletic position, which is a wide, balanced stance, should also be maintained as best as possible while playing defense. On-ball positioning should be a few steps back to the middle with their hips parallel to the boards on the side, in line with the offensive player's top shoulder, between their stick and the net. So you want to stand in line with the head of their stick. Off-ball defenders should position themselves further away from their check and ready to help in the prime scoring area in the middle, staying tight as a unit. Off-ball and adjacent or same side defenders need to sag over to show help, but also be able to recover to their check if necessary. The thought is that the offense has to beat all 5 defenders in order to score a goal. Another analogy would be that you must cover 1.5 players at all time, your check and half of someone else's check. And I won't get into helping man-to-man defense or helping player-to-player defense, I should say now, to be gender neutral. Because that's kind of the next step outside of the fundamentals, because the most basic thing is the house defense. So the way we should teach, we talked about a teaching process, is whole, part, whole. So the whole is the house, okay? So picture these players are just a coach or two passing the ball around or walking around with the ball and the players having to adjust. Well, starting them in this position is one thing. The next thing is to run from center back into these positions. And then lastly would be to run from the other end all the way back and get into these positions on their own, without the coach having to yell, house, house. And so in the house, again, these players should be in line with the offensive player's stick head, in between the goalie and the ball, basically. And we always say like 3 half steps in any direction. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, maybe. Same here, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Probably not 1, 2, 3 back, but maybe. But and then this player is what we call on a string. So they play the point player when they have the ball, but when it goes to the side, they drop back. When it goes all the way down, they drop right into the middle. And so we do that basic explanation. We make them run back in. And by the way, the communication is, I've got the point. It's usually your best player, your most, defensive minded player, quarterback of your defense. And then these ones are saying, I've got high or I've got low. And they talk to each other about who's got what. And actually the point player should also be making sure all these people run into their proper positions. And so this is our defense in a house league, in a fundamental setting. And so now what we do is, from there, we teach you the balance and the footwork within the house. We teach you to keep your stick up within the house. We teach you the proper defensive stance within the house. We teach you how to close the gap on shooters in the house. We teach you how to box out after the shooter shoots. We teach you topside defense. We teach how, if you get beat topside, how to recover and get into a trail check position. And then getting into some more advanced technical stuff. But this is how defense arguably, from my perspective, evolves. And this is therefore the most efficient way to teach it and the exponential pathway for the student to learn it. Because if we go here and then we go here and then we go back to here and then we come to here and then we're just chopping all kinds of random things together with no continuity anymore. And you'll see when I show you the plans how there's continuity and one drill flows into the other one. So that's defense. And again, after defense, you need to pick up the loose ball. And so usually the team that collects the most loose balls ends up winning the lacrosse game. It's kind of like rebounds in basketball, you know, and you can present it that way. As I said last session, the more analogies, the better. You hear me saying them all the time, right? And so whoever has the most possession usually ends up winning the game because they control the momentum. You know, stuff like multiple resets are huge. And, you know, when teams rush down and take a quick transition shot and then the other team goes down and uses the full 30 seconds 3 times in a row, guess what? The other team's defense is gassed out, and you're controlling possession when you have loose balls. And the biggest determining factor is hard work and effort and the will to battle to keep a 50-50 ball alive. But as I believe I said, teaching fundamentals, you want to build it up from static to dynamic. And so we start them just on the spot, scooping the ball 5 times. Then we teach the trap and scoop 5 times and talk about when you might use one versus the other. And then it's scoop it and bring it up into the triple threat position, or scoop it and change directions and protect the ball. And then it becomes like attacking the ball and, you know, loose balls on the run, all the way to like loose balls without pressure, with support, battles and scrums, and, well, loose balls when you're completely exhausted. Because there's a big difference between getting a loose ball when you have full energy and a loose ball when you have just played a 30 seconds and now you have a multiple reset and now there's a loose ball and you don't have the energy to get it now. So anyways, face-offs also has a little bit to do with loose balls, so you know you can weave that into it. But I'm not going to read all of these, but everything I'm kind of saying is listed here. And, you know, things like 2 butts low, that's the cue that we use in the preparatory movements of a loose ball, right? We also have to line up our stick with the ball, and it has to be 3 inches behind the ball when we scoop it. And we can't just pop our stick up into the air at the end. We kind of have to like tuck it in and corral it. And yeah, so 2-hand tough. We want loose balls with 2 hands. We preach it all the time. And at the highest level, we're still talking about it. Like, it's unacceptable to go for a loose ball with 1 hand. So loose balls. And then once you pick up the loose ball, you have to protect the ball. And so now we talk about cradling and ball protection. And it's just like a basketball player. They don't run up the floor with bouncing the ball right in front of them. They're turned to the side like this, and they're keeping their body between the defender and the ball. And that's what ball protection is. And I do a demo where I say, okay, who thinks they can get the ball off me? I won't move anywhere. I'll just stand in one place and spin around in circles, basically. And that's what I do. And I show them, like, there's no reason to panic. All you have to do is hide the ball. There's your cue. Hide the ball from the opponent. And if you watch like Lyle Thompson and these guys, that's what letting the game come to you is all about. He's gonna pressure me from my stick. I'm gonna roll to the other side. He's gonna pressure from the other side. I'm gonna roll towards my stick side and just constantly keep the ball protected. And from there, you also do a lot of dodging too, which is a part of ball protection. So the most fundamental dodges I just told you about, roll dodging. But also you have a face dodge where we haven't got to passing and catching yet, but we want the ball up in the triple threat position or the throwing position. So from here, I can bring the ball across the front of my body, which you can see I've done in this picture right here. And that's basically an underneath move to go on the board side of the defender, where I could roll back this way right here, and I could roll that way. Or if this guy was in front of me here, I could even roll underneath. I can roll both directions. Both have value. But the only dodge, the only other dodge is the hitch step, or the juke, or the jab step, people might call it, where basically you plant off your outside foot and you cut hard into the middle. And I'll show you like a shooting progression here in a second where we use that. But to me, those are the three basic dodges that we teach fundamentally: a face dodge, a roll dodge, and a hitch step. The stutter steps, bull dodges, toe drags, like none of that, right? Like, stick to the basics, stick to the fundamentals. Even one-handed cradling is a no-no fundamentally, right? Maybe in field lacrosse it is, but we're talking box here for now. Mind you, all of this stuff basically applies to both. So getting to stick work, passing, catching, and shooting. I mean, I talked about this pretty extensively at the beginning, but like reaching your hands back, rotating your hips and shoulders for power, not stopping short, following through, starting perpendicular to the net if you're shooting, or kind of on a 45-degree angle to the target, transferring your weight from your back foot to your front foot, promoting overhand. By the way, I never even showed you, but if you don't know what any of this stuff means, like, you can click on any of these red words and get a full definition of the term. So if you didn't know overhand, like here it is, sidearm, blah, blah, blah. But it's all woven in there. Catching, like, you got to give a target first and foremost. That's your preparatory movement, right? Obviously, like, holding the stick is the first and foremost thing in passing, like shoulder width apart, one hand on the bottom, other hand underhand grip, shoulder width apart. Yeah. But one thing I kind of want to discuss here, love to hear your input on this one, Robert. I know you've been teaching fundamentals for a long time, but is this sliding the hand up for beginners in catching. So, had some pretty good discussions on this recently. Obviously, at a certain point, people aren't doing that anymore, right? Like, pros don't do that. The only time I do that is if the pass is tight to my body. I slide my hand up the shaft so the head is close to my hand. That's the only time. I'm certainly not doing it on a high pass that's over my head, because if my hand's up by the top of my head, I can't reach as high. So, everybody that I've come across seems to say, and, slide your hand up when you catch. So, it does help in the beginning. But I personally, at a point, it becomes a problem because it's an extra step that's unnecessary. Just like twirling the stick before I got to twirl my stick before I pass. Well, geez, now he's not open anymore, or she. So anyways, Robert, what's your thoughts on that? What's your take on that?
I always show to raise the hand near the stick, the basket, but I'm not sure anymore with what you said.
Well, I'm saying, at what point do they lower it back to shoulder width for you?
Yeah.
When, though? Like, so for me, as I said earlier, are they doing it 1 out of 3 times? Are they doing it 3 out of 3 times properly? Are they doing it 2 out of 3 times? If their hands up at the top and they're doing it 2 out of 3 times, it's probably the right thing for them to be doing. If they're catching it every time 3 out of 3 with their hand at the top, and in fact, probably dropping a few because their hand's at the top now, it's painful for me to watch sometimes. And I got to say, like, buddy, it's time to start sliding your hand down and just passing and catching from the same position. But it's really a fine line. And I agree, in the beginning, the hand should be up by the top. And you use the analogy as like catching in baseball. And you can even have them catch that way for the first couple. And by the way, if they're going to do passing and catching together, it's probably not going to be with them using the stick, because they can't pass 2 out of 10 times, even if it's their first time. So what you got to do is you got to grab the ball with your hand, underhand toss it or overhand toss it, because they're likely to be much more accurate if you're working on catching. The other thing would, and I'll show you in a drill, but like, is to have your line against the boards. So that way, if they miss the pass, say you're a coach, right? One player steps in, you pass. If they miss, it just hits the boards and bounces right back to you. And then the next person steps in and you pass. And so like, that's one other way to get around like the fact that they probably can't even really pass and catch if they're 8 years old. They just started playing. Like, everybody wants to go to passing and catching right away. But as we just realized, look at all the stuff that comes before passing and catching. And when we get to the practice plans, I'm going to show you why passing and catching is not the first thing that you should teach, because the majority of the game is loose balls and defense, to be honest, in the beginning. And so the next kind of major category here is transition. Most of what you'll see at this fundamentals age is this: fast breaks. A slow break or like a standard breakout, I don't even teach that until the older ages, because there's really no point. You're either playing a fallback rule, or it's just too complex and not worth the value, where you should be teaching them to identify fast breaks. And really, as far as you're going to get them and teaching them anything, as far as I'm concerned, is getting to identifying and breaking down a 2-on-1. Oh, this guy's open, my head's up and my stick's up, so I can make a pass to that player because I'm aware of a 2-on-1 when I see one. But probably most of everything is going to be 1-on-1. And people just, you're encouraging passing and stuff, but like, it's, you can use a 1 or a 2 pass rule in a 3v3 game is good. But we're dealing with basically fast breaks at this age, and like maybe like running your lanes. And this is for whole part whole. This is your lanes. And 10-year-olds could probably get this, maybe not 8-year-olds, where basically the outside lanes should be getting ahead of the play. It's the same in basketball, right? Outside lanes get ahead of the play. Inside lanes have to sometimes stagger themselves and slow up in some cases if they have time, to allow for, in the end, you can see we have basically both crease positions and both shooter positions filled. So if I get pressured right here in a 3-on-2, I can dump it here. And then if I get pressured right here, I can dump it here. And even when I make this pass, we don't continue running. The lane stops right here. Because if we keep going this way, all 4 of us, and this person shoots and misses the net and the ball comes out here, now it's a 3-on-1 going the other way. But really, all we're trying to teach fundamentally is staying in your lanes, cutting in on a 45-degree angle to the post and running that lane. And if you don't get the ball, stopping right off the side of the net here, if you're the furthest ahead of the play, and wait there until you get the ball. And that way, if you get it, it's 1 step off the far post and in. And that's what we teach: how to score goals. Shoot it off the far post, reach past the goalie. And what you'll see, this person will run to here. This person will run to here and cut in. And so they're allowing people to catch up, and they're not in a threatening position. Even if they catch the ball, they still have to run to here now anyways. So that's fast break kind of lanes that, you want to teach them to recognize fast breaks, and ultimately lots of shots on the run, lots of transition. But, you're rarely going to get into set offense type stuff. The most you'll probably get to is like a basic pick and roll, depending on the age. And so, yeah, not really much to add here because it's just getting past the fundamentals now by the time you get to team offense. And that's like where we're trying to get to. Like if we look at playbooks here, so my playbooks for house league settings, tactically, this is most of what we're teaching is technical, individual technical skills, but team tactical skills, well, I mentioned already, starting at the face-off is 3 players on the back line, ideally a left here, a right here, your best loose ball player here, your smartest player here. And so what was I going to say here? Oh yeah, if you need to practice this and weave this into your practice, put the X's on the floor. Put pylons on the floor, mark these out. And when you play your 3-minute shifts, people run out to these positions, and by halfway through the year, they don't need them anymore. But anyways, your face-off, you lose the face-off, you're running back into the house. We already talked about it. We're running the 2-way system. Are you running defense first, then offense, then off? Or are you going offense first, then defense, and then off? In the first period, sometimes different than the second or the third, or depending on the score in the game, even depending on what kind of players you have. But pretty basic. We got a face-off thing that we do. We go both ways, up, down, and off. We play a house on defense, and we know how to execute a fast break. And taking it to the next level, maybe by the time you move through from the fundamental stage to the train to train to learn to train, all that, like the older age groups, then you can start instituting a motion offense where you pass to the weak side, cut through, look for it. It's probably not there. Fill the crease. This person then passes low if it's not there, checks the off-ball cutter. If the off-ball cutter is not open, they check the on-ball cutter. If the on-ball cutter is not open, they carry high, in which time everybody is replaced here. So the one has gone here, here, then here. This person's gone here, then out here. And this person has come up. So anyways, that's motion offense. You can also do a down pick or a seal right here. So instead of just exchanging as that third option, this person could seal their check in. This person could come over and shoot, or this person can pass down, cut in, down pick, come over the pick and shoot or dump to the roller. But again, getting into some more advanced stuff, a breakout more advanced, and then a helping man-to-man D or player-to-player D is the next step where we're trying to get to from a house defense. The problem with a house defense is you're standing flat-footed often. You really got to tell them to stay on their toes, stay in the athletic position with their stick up. But challenging for loose balls is the big problem because you're standing flat-footed. The offense, in theory, is moving more than you. So really, 50-50 loose balls, you need to challenge and keep alive. And then your next player has to run in and pick it up when they see the opportunity. Otherwise, you can be standing in the house for a long time if you're against some good offensive players. But anyways, getting to the actual nuts and bolts of drills, and we've got, another 10 or so minutes. And this is where I was saying, Robert, I need you to vouch for me here, because right now you guys have all of these plans here on the side, and these are kind of like plug and place. Like choose, like today I want to work on one-on-ones. So I'm going to do this practice or some of these practices with one-on-one stuff, or I want to work on 2-on-1s. So I'll try this. And so like usually a 3A would be a 60-minute practice. A B would be a 90-minute practice. That's similar. But here, and what I want to get you set up with is what I call horizontally integrated practice plans for every age group. This is as developmentally as appropriate as possible. These are the story-based plans, which are crazy. Like, I'll just show you quickly. We talked about engaging the imagination. So there's the Haudenosaunee legend of the animals versus the birds. And the story is, you know, the mouse wanted to play on the animals team, but it was a rodent, and it tried to play with the birds, but it didn't have wings. But the birds stretched the skin under its front arms, turned it into the flying squirrel who scored the winning goal of the game. Moral of the story is there's a place for everybody in lacrosse. Nobody plays the same way. You know, don't underestimate your opponent. Like, it goes on and on. And so you tell this story, but not the ending, just the beginning. Who was on the animals team? Who was on the birds team? What were their behaviors? Blah, blah, blah. Engaging them in their imagination. And ahead of time, you sent a video where they can watch. You sent a book that they can read with their parents. Every drill has an audio clip. It's crazy. Like, it takes all hands on deck. You need 5 coaches pretty much to do this, like 2 drill leaders, 2 drill helpers, and a DJ. But if you do it, you'll never have a more engaging practice than this. Here's a couple just reminders. Go check out these skill analysis pages that we already looked at. But engage the 5 senses. Bring food in. Make it a memorable experience. Make it a magical experience. Bring in tactile things, wooden lacrosse sticks and hand drums. Ideally, First Nation representation. I mean, in Montreal, it's nothing for a Haudenosaunee member to come and help out, and they should be there. And so yeah, so that's the story-based plans. And then where you see more of the progressions and stuff. So by the way, there's some 3v3 that happens in those plans and things as well towards the end. But so as I said, like, you should always be developing the fundamentals from static to dynamic in orientation. So from a standstill or stationary to dynamic or fluid. So here's my intro to lacrosse practice. First, so I come out and I discuss the history of the game, as I've been taught. Never start without the history. Introduce yourselves, whatever. And lesson number 1, keep 2 hands on the stick and run a lap and meet me back, you know, behind the net or wherever you start from. Only instruction, keep 2 hands on the stick. And so they run around the outside, they come back, you know, 3 or 4 of them took a hand off the stick. Some of them have their hands halfway up the stick. Some are holding their hands together. And so, a couple of things. Number 1, how to hold the stick properly. So 1 hand at the bottom, overhand grip, 1 hand underhand grip, shoulder width apart, stick up. And secondly is, whatever side of your body you chose to run this lap and hold your stick on is your dominant hand that we want you to run all of the drills today. We don't want you doing one thing on this side and another thing on this side. I wouldn't teach you left-handed layups on the first day. You would have to master your dominant hand first. And this is the argument we have with the Americans all the time, who want to teach both hands right away. I disagree. And secondly, if you want to talk life lessons, don't cut corners. Who ran closest to the boards the whole time? Celebrate them. Celebrate the, you know, we talked about it in our pillars. And then here we go, teaching fundamental movement, how to stand as an athlete in the athletic position. And all they do is follow the stick, left, right, back, forward. You teach them how to side shuffle. You teach them how to back pedal. You teach them how to roll. You put your stick down, you tap the ground and spin it, and that means roll. And you got to go down, fall, and you teach them how to fall. You start them on all fours, and then you, before this drill, you could start on all fours, drop and roll to your side with all of your weight distributed across the side. And then do that from a standstill, and then do that falling backwards. This is a fundamental movement skill being woven into the practice. Here's static to dynamic loose balls. And notice we went from defensive stuff, right, foot position, athletic position, to loose balls, which happens after good defense. So 5 stationary, 5 trap and scoop, 5 scoop it and triple threat position. And then do all of those from back up 5 meters and run onto the ball. And then see if you can do that. That's building it up progressively. And then, of course, add a game. Make it fun. Static, dynamic, game. Here's cradling. Static, dynamic, game. Here's protecting the ball. Static, dynamic, game. Right? Protecting from a partner. This is the drill I told you. I try to get the ball from me without me running anywhere, just staying still. And now you walk around in between these cones, hiding the ball from the coach, and the coach is trying to strip the ball. And then you kick it up to a jog, and then you kick it up to full speed. And guess what? People start doing roll dodges and face dodges naturally. And it leads us right into our lessons on cradling, right? And you can follow up with that. And in the next practice, we're doing that. And here's passing, catching, and here's a regression for people who can't catch that I added, and then a passing and catching game. And then if you look at the next practice, well, keep an eye on these 2 drills, right? No ball. Now, today you're starting with a lap with the ball in your stick, and you're doing 2 laps. You're going to do a second one the other way. And try not to drop the ball. And whatever, it's a rehash on cradling. And here's now, instead of side shuffling without a ball, I'm side shuffling with my stick in the triple threat position. I'm backpedaling with my stick up, ready to just flick my wrists at any time and make a pass. And now we're attacking these loose balls. We're not waiting for them. Here, passing against the boards. This is a chance for the coaches to give feedback in just like a basic board shuttle. The ball's probably going to be everywhere, but you know, it's early enough in the practice where I'm doing it on purpose because I'm giving them lots of feedback here if there's just 2 coaches. Otherwise, I'd probably skip this and go right to this and give more feedback, and possibly even break into 1, 2, 3, and 4, like I explained earlier, in the different segments of the passing movement, if depending on how it goes, how the group does. And then I introduce shooting, the final thing here. And like shooting, to me, there's 2 types of shots. There's like the Steph Curry set shot, like I'm wide open. And for us, we go perpendicular. We take a crow hop, a side shuffle, and then shoot. And that's the stable way. You can see here's no goalie. The stable way to teach it, where you're balanced. Because when you're on the run, you're not balanced. And that's why I teach stationary set shooting before I teach shooting on the run. But then you've got like a relay race that incorporates everything. And you got a shooting drill where this team plays this team, and whoever hits the net 10 times first wins. And we start to incorporate cardio at the end of practice. But you can see that it's fundamentals, then games, fundamentals, then games. Like nothing's changing here. It ends in like a scrimmage in the 3rd practice. And then the next piece to really be aware of is, what we do after that. And I just want you to notice the progression in shooting. So we just taught shooting. And so here's like a basic shooting practice. Like we're introducing a goalie now. So the goalie's getting his one-on-one with the coach. Players are warming up. And then we do semicircle shooting warm up the goalie, snake shooting on the goalie, some passing on the run and breakaways on the goalie. But then the next practice, we start to add like footwork to it. And we do some dodges, starting with the ball in their stick. Why? Because we want them to have fun. If we're doing passing and catching and the ball's on the ground the whole time, it's not fun. So we start the ball in their stick as much as possible. Lots of shooting here. Kids love to shoot and score goals, let's be honest. And so Here's the hitch step I mentioned earlier. I run up as a righty. I plant hard off my left foot, step into the middle, and then side shuffle a couple steps and shoot. And here I cut hard into the middle, plant off my inside foot, get into a back pedal, then a side shuffle and shoot in the prime scoring area, inside of 45 degrees off the post. And what are we doing? Well, we just added a fundamental movement skill, a side shuffle right here, a back pedal right here that we've been disguising as lacrosse and adding it into our progressions to build up these skills. And lastly, we always say pass low, carry high. You need to get good at carrying high, taking whatever space you get, coming in and stepping in and shooting. By the way, we're standing around a lot this practice. Cardio is important. We're doing a 5-minute bench run. Learn to love it. And we're introducing static stretching because it's the first real heavy run we've done. So that kind of takes us to the end here. I'd love to keep going, and I certainly can and will over time here with high performance stuff coming later on. But my plan is to do a physical needs workshop next, possibly mental performance, but I might come up with a new topic for the last session, which currently is slated for Thursday. I'd like to move it to a Wednesday if possible, especially if we're going to get lower numbers. Like, it's a shame that we weren't recording the last session because, well, Tristan did awesome. I thought it went really good, and it'd be great to use for, I think it would be good for us to use and give access to all of our coaches to this stuff, including today's session. So I'm going to stop the recording, but is there anything before I do that anybody wants to bring up? Any questions or anything about anything you saw here? I know I was a lot of words here. I'd like to show you in person and will, but I don't know. They're tried, tested, and true. We've ran them 10 times plus. I think this is the road to the most efficient, expedited growth process possible for a brand new kid. This is what we did with our girls last year, all first-time players, and they beat out 2 provinces at Canada Games. Like, to me, that's crazy. There's 15 girls that played in the whole province. And so that's what's possible if you do it the right way from the beginning. And as you know, Robert, I don't know, I've been referring to you a lot. I didn't really get to know Yannick here tonight, but Tristan, I know you're studying the game here heavy these days, and hopefully you saw the value in this. But if you teach the fundamentals the wrong way from the beginning, you can do more harm than good. And you take years breaking these bad habits that were instituted, unfortunately, that by people usually that didn't know any better. So all this stuff is rooted in science. It's evidence-based approach, these teaching philosophies and everything. So hopefully we can start relaying these messages to our coaches and get everybody speaking the same language is a big part of this. Like the U9 stuff flows into the U13. You can see the fundamentals. You don't spend as much time. You just kind of do a once over, and then you get into the shooting sooner, and then you're getting into the breakout now, and blah, blah, blah. And then it's you expand or evolve on the previous drills as you move into U17, and here's like Canada Games stuff and getting more right into systems and stuff. It depends on where you are with the group. Sometimes I'll use the U13 plans for a U9 group, and sometimes I'll use the U9 plans for a U13 group because that's where they are developmentally. If I have a group of AAA hockey players, probably not starting with the U9 plans, even if they're 11, 12 years old, or 10 years old. You're gonna get right into some of this other stuff. So anyways, I would love to load up those accounts that I just gave you with these plans, but that's another thing that that needs to get worked out here with FCQ. So working on it. Appreciate the support on all this stuff, and looking forward to being there in person coming July 1st, and in it for the next couple years, hopefully. So thanks for your interest. Appreciate it. It'd be nice if we had, like, we're working on hiring an admin assistant. So to nobody's fault at this point, there could probably be more people here. We can decide, Tristan and I will talk, I think Tuesday, like if we even want to keep this going. Is this the best use of our time and money at this point? So, you know, stuff to discuss, but I know you said you've been liking it, Robert. So, you know, just, I don't know what the best approach is per se. I'm only doing 4 or 5 hours a week until I get there. So is there something else we could be doing that'd be more beneficial? Let me know. But I know Tristan, like, you've got a lot of stuff coming up in schools and stuff. So if you want to dig into this stuff in even more detail on another call at some point, let me know. Cause yeah, like this stuff can support a full program. I mean, 16 practices here. Like, we do our whole, this will be our high performance program on floor component. This next winter, ideally, is ideally you're able to run these practices, because you've seen me run them once or twice. You've ran them, half the drills, blah, blah, blah. And then you just take it and run with it with a few of the, you know, other best coaches in the area, hopefully. But yeah, so thanks guys, and we'll see you next Thursday unless we hear otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate.
You too, buddy.
Bye.
See you around. Ciao.